Welcome to Enhancing Your Visits with a Person in Long-Term Care. This session is for people who are supporting someone who's living in long-term care and who would like to get some ideas and strategies on how to stay connected and make the most out of their visits. We'd like to recognize that today's topic can raise a lot of emotions for you, especially if the person you care about has recently moved into a care home. We'll be providing you today with some tips and strategies to make those visits a little easier. In this session, we're going to look at the following topics. To start, we want to acknowledge that there are many different ways to stay connected to someone living in long-term care, and we'll explore why it's good to stay connected and how you can remain connected to a person living in care. Next, we'll outline some tips and strategies to consider to support a visit, whether it be virtual or in person. And we'll look at some suggestions around ideas and activities you might want to consider doing during a visit. And finally, recognizing that sometimes the hardest part of a visit can be saying goodbye, we'd like to highlight some strategies that might be helpful to bring your visit to a close. Humans are social beings. For many of us, making and maintaining connections with people we know and care about is an important part of our lives. Staying connected to a person who's living in long-term care is important. When someone is living in care, staying connected also means to stay connected with the care team, as this engagement will directly relate to the quality of care and comfort the person living in care receives. We may be uncertain about what to expect, and this may make us hesitant to connect with a person living in long-term care. You are not alone. Many family members or friends feel this way. You may be concerned about how the person will react to your visit. There are a lot of demands on caregivers, and caregivers often experience many difficult emotions. For some, connecting with someone living in care may also be emotionally upsetting or difficult. What a visit looks like, how long a visit lasts, and how often you visit will look different for each person and may even look different from what you originally expected. It helps to remind yourself that you are doing the best that you can to look after yourself and the person living with dementia. It takes time to figure out what works. Do what feels right for you, and know that it's okay for things to change over time. There can be many reasons why we would want to stay connected to someone living in long-term care. Some of these reasons might include that connecting gives us an opportunity to evaluate how things are going for the person in care. It gives us a chance to assess how they're doing and to see how the adjustment is going. Are there any unmet needs at this time? Are there other things that we can do to support them? You can share stories about how you are doing or what's happening in your life if you feel that this is appropriate. You will be the best judge. Some people who have recently moved into care would rather not hear about things that you're doing without them. So perhaps try talking about a meal or the weather or things from long ago, good times you had together in the past. This interaction can help to reinforce the connection you have with the person in care. Even if the person may not remember who you are, they may still feel a sense of connection through sensory interactions such as tone of voice or touch or smell if connecting in person. These feelings help bring about a sense of familiarity or comfort for the person in care. Connecting can also be about an opportunity to have some personal or one-on-one time together. This may be about reading a book together or reminiscing about things in the past or reading old greeting cards. Through connecting, you may be able to encourage social interaction between the person you are visiting and other residents. If by phone or video chat, you may be able to meet other people living in the home. If connecting in person, you may find strategically timing your visit to coincide with a preferred activity, such as a musical event or an art activity, can encourage social interaction. If you have a routine that the two of you have done before the person moved into care, you may want to continue doing. Examples of this might be having afternoon tea together, taking a morning walk together, or watching a regular TV show together. These activities can be done virtually or in person. And finally, most people appreciate being able to have a change in scenery. Where appropriate, taking the person on an outing to a local ice cream store, coffee shop, or a store might be a nice option. Just a note here to say that we recognize that this may not be appropriate for everyone. And if you choose to do an outing, please remember to discuss your plans with the staff before going so both of you can be prepared. You may want to wait until a person has settled in before you do this. Even those in the later stages of dementia need to feel connected to others. Know that keeping connections throughout the journey can make a difference. Depending on your circumstances, your visit can look very different and unique from others. Know that there are many ways that you can visit or stay connected. Many people, for example, because of distance, illness, weather, or any other reason, may be visiting virtually, while others will visit in person. In this session, we do talk about ways to keep connected. However, if you are struggling to find ways to keep connected, we encourage you to reach out to our First Link Dementia Helpline or to the staff at the long-term care home to discuss your concerns. Some ways to keep connected may include, for many of us, when we talk about visiting, we immediately think about meeting in person. This is absolutely an option, but there are also many other ways to visit outside of being in person, including talking over the phone. The person in care may have a landline in their room, a cell phone they still use, or there may be a centralized number that can be called to connect with them. Some care homes have started to offer Zoom calls, or if the person living in care has a cell phone or tablet, FaceTime or Skype or Teams may be an option. There can also be blended visits where someone is visiting in person and they have others call using Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom who are at a distance. And don't forget, there's still the option of sending a written letter, a little gift package, a card, or some pictures by mail. Many people in long-term care enjoy receiving a card, letter, or a postcard from a friend or relative, even if they are visited regularly. That same letter can be read aloud to them when you visit the next time. Ultimately, staying connected and visiting is a personal choice, and it will take time to figure things out. There is no correct number of times to visit a person, and there shouldn't be judgment around this. Know that you are doing your best. Guilt may play a part in this process, and sometimes those with the best intentions may cause some of this guilt, which can cause additional challenges. Many caregivers feel pressure to visit and guilty around their visits. Remind yourself that caring for someone living in long-term care needs to be balanced with caring for yourself. Visiting may look different from what you originally expected, and it will look different for each person. There are many different ways to impact the quality of life for a person living in care, even if you are unable to visit often. We'll discuss some of these ways throughout the presentation. In the end, try to keep in mind that whatever you decide is the right decision for you and the person living in care. With this personal choice in mind, some aspects to staying connected include if you will visit. Although some staff may not recommend coming for an in-person visit for the first few weeks to allow for an adjustment period, others will suggest that an in-person visit can help the person better adjust to their new environment. Ultimately, do what you feel is best and also what can work for you. Staff cannot force you to visit, nor force you not to visit. How often you visit, whether in person or virtually, will also be a consideration. Know that quality of time may become more important than the number of times you connect. You may also choose to limit in-person visits and increase virtual visits. Again, this is your decision to make. Another aspect to consider is for how long you visit. Again, this is a personal choice. However, if you are, for example, doing a Zoom visit, there may be limits to staff's time to support a call. If doing any virtual visit, think about the person's attention span. Are they feeling tired and do they need a rest? Is it time for them to eat? Are they distracted by others or by activities going on in the care home? Again, this is a personal choice and you will need to decide what works best. Remember to consider the quality of the visit as opposed to the quantity of the visits. As an example, a 15-minute engaged visit may be better than a 3-hour visit. Try to notice the person's body language and facial expressions to help you judge how long your visits should be. Don't be surprised if the person you're visiting just walks away. They may just be saying, "I need a rest from our visit," or it may be a sign that the visit is over. Finally, consider when to plan your visits will also be important. Moving to a new home can mean new routines, and there will likely be adjustments with a new schedule. There may be certain times of day that don't work as well in a new environment. Thinking about this can help make for a better visit in the end. Understanding time schedules can help you plan your visit around times that work best, depending on what you would like to do together. Additionally, if the person living with dementia is more confused or tired at certain times of the day, try to schedule visits when they will be alert and engaged. If there are times of the day when they become anxious or agitated, you may want to consider scheduling a visit when the person may need some reassurance or support. As an example, a client of ours knew that her mom started getting agitated after supper, so she would plan her phone calls at this time as a helpful distraction for her mom, and also to help her mom feel more at ease hearing a familiar voice. Even though her mom couldn't remember that she was talking to her daughter, she found her daughter's voice soothing. Once you have evaluated the if, how often, how long, and when, you may need to talk to the care team in order to negotiate visiting hours to ensure a quality visit. And by negotiate, it's what we really mean is to gain their insight into what their experience has been as well. It's important to keep the care team involved in these discussions. When we think about visiting a person in long-term care, it's common to have certain expectations for how you want the visit to go. The visit may not always go as planned or how we intended it to. Having an idea of what you'd like to have happened can be part of the planning process around your visit. But just because you are the one to decide how you can stay connected, it doesn't mean that this can't be changed. It's okay to change your choices. It's okay to shift visits from in-person to virtual or vice versa. It's okay to reduce visits if needed. Being flexible and open to changes may help in the end. It's likely that for most of you, your visits will change over time. It can be helpful to spend some time thinking about how your visits have changed or even how they might change over time. Having highlighted some of the different options for visiting, let's take a look at some tips to help with those visits. After this, I'll describe some activities you may find helpful to do during a visit. Before starting these two sections, just a reminder that when we're talking about visits, we're referring to connecting with someone either in person or virtually. So think about how the tips and activities can be applied to both in-person and virtual visits and to your particular situation. In order to have a successful visit, one thing to consider is that people living with dementia often remember events from the distant past better than those that occurred after or shortly before the onset of their disease. For this reason, when visiting with someone, it can be very helpful to know where the person is at in their reality. Are they 65 and recently retired? Are they 55 and sending their child to college? Are they caring for a young child or a baby? Or are they themselves a young child with living parents? Figuring out where they are on their age line by what they are talking about can help us understand what they say, what they do, what their interests are, and what their needs might be. Knowing earlier life events can orient, comfort, and soothe the person you are supporting. Additionally, knowing some key triggers during that same time period can help alleviate stress or perceptions. One client talked about how her mom, who was living in long-term care, would often complain to her on the phone about how she was having to work for so many days in a row. Her mom was previously a care aide in a long-term care home. The daughter would respond, "Yeah, you must be so tired working all of those hours. But it's okay, Mom, because tomorrow you have a day off and you can rest." Another client talked about one time when she visited her dad, he got very agitated and upset, and she realized that her long hair was a trigger for her dad because her father didn't recognize her daughter for who she was, but was rather mistaking her for someone else from his past. Because of this, she decided to cut her hair to help her dad feel more at ease during their visits. And it worked. In addition to the age timeline, there are other key considerations that can make a visit easier. You may feel stressed or rushed as a result of driving or getting to the care home. There may be multiple things on your mind. You may be concerned about how the visit goes. Before entering the care home, many have told us it helps to take a moment to center themselves. Take a few deep breaths. Pause for a moment. Check in with yourself. Are you present and ready for a visit? Being able to enter the home centered and calm can go a long way to enhancing your visit. As dementia progresses, the person you are visiting may not recognize you as someone they know. For this reason, you may need or want to introduce yourself and say why you're connecting. Hi, Mary, it's Jane, your old friend. I'm calling to chat with you today. You may also want to consider whether you use their first name, something they would be most familiar with, Mary, as opposed to what you know them by, such as Mum or Honey or Sis. Think about the environment that you and they are in during your visit. Make the environment pleasant by reducing background noises. Turn off a TV or radio, close a door or shut a window, or go to a quiet room. Consider potential visual or auditory stimuli that may become a distraction. Will a window be a visual distraction or a pleasant discussion topic? Having a more focused and less confusing environment for both people can allow for a more focused visit. When thinking about the previous slide and the age category the person may be living in, you may have to answer some difficult questions during the visit. Common questions include asking when a person can go home and when someone who died a long time ago will come to visit. This can not only be challenging for you, but it can also bring up difficult feelings for you. Thinking ahead of time about how you might respond to these types of questions can be helpful for both of you. In these types of situations, acknowledging their feeling and reassuring them that they are safe, loved, and cared can go a long way to help them feel at ease. Focus on the person themselves. What are their preferences? Consider asking the person what they want to do. By encouraging the person you're visiting with to make decisions about how you spend time together, you can help to enhance their independence and self-esteem. But generally, when offering options, it's a good idea to limit the choices. Try asking, would you like to go for a walk or sit here and chat? If that's too much choice, try yes, no questions, such as, would you like to go for a walk? It can be challenging to communicate with someone who has limited verbal capacity, since you may not know what it is that they'd like to do, or even if they're enjoying the visit. This is a review of some key considerations when communicating effectively with a person living with dementia. We go into further detail about communication strategies in our Understanding Communication workshop, and you may want to review that recording as well. Face the person at eye level. Peripheral vision changes as dementia progresses, and it can become increasingly challenging for a person living with dementia to see a person who is not directly in their line of sight. When approaching the person you're visiting, position yourself where they can see you before you start talking. Approach the person in a calm and friendly way. And also speak slowly and calmly. Use simple, short sentences and give time for the person to process what you have said before you move on. And just as you give time for the person to process what's been said to them, also make sure that you give time for the person to provide a response. Show as you talk. Using actions as you talk can help give your words meaning. For example, if you're visiting in person at lunchtime and are asking if the person would like butter on their bread, hold up the butter and gesture to the bread. Give them the attention needed to show that you are interested and engaged in what they are doing and saying. Knowing the person can help you find keys to communicating. Are there certain ways that they like to communicate? Do they need hearing aids or glasses to help them? Are there ways that they can be more comfortable? A preferred chair, blanket, or pillow? Are there topics of conversation or activities that they particularly enjoy? Additional things to keep in mind during a visit include, as we've already mentioned, their reality may be very different from yours. Be flexible with your reality. Meet them where they are at. Avoid arguments, debates, or correcting mistakes. They may become overstimulated and overtired during a visit for any number of reasons. Try to gauge how things are going and be mindful if you need to switch tasks or end a visit early. Take the time needed to be present for the person and be prepared to listen to them. People may want to share their feelings. Remain open and sympathetic. And finally, as we've mentioned before, use your knowledge of the person to think of an activity you'd like to do during your visit or a topic that you'd like to talk about. Thinking about their likes and dislikes can really help during a visit. Additionally, as we've mentioned, consider the length of your visit. Sometimes the visit can be too long for a person living in care, so do think about their attention span and what can work well for them. Before shifting into specific activities that you can do, think about ways you might be able to establish a connection in order to engage and encourage the person to do an activity. There are many different ways that this can be done, and some options include bringing in photographs, videos, or letters. Photos from when they were younger can be particularly helpful. Take some time to think about the person's talents and activities and even how they're doing on that day. Would a relaxing visit be watching a movie, or is it getting some exercise? Perhaps that's a better option. Is there a familiar game or craft activity that they would be interested in doing? If there isn't a particular activity that is of interest, is there a particular item or person that you think the person would like to connect with? Can you bring in another person to the visit? Is there a treat the person would enjoy? You could also talk about the treat. Sharing memories about the past can help the person to be engaged. Remember, the past is something that may be easier for the person in care to recall. Remember together and laugh together. And sometimes just sitting in silence can also be meaningful. In our daily lives, we don't always engage in conversations or activities, so having some time to just sit together can be a nice option. We provide here a list of some possible activities you can do during a visit. All of these activities can be done virtually, in person, or a combination of the two. You just may need to be a bit more creative if your visit is virtual. The list includes playing a game together, working on a project together, doing a jigsaw puzzle, having a tea party, participating in activity time, listening to some music, and you may want to make a song list for the person to play when you aren't around. You could watch a movie together, read a book or newspaper together, and potentially talk about it afterwards. Additionally, when doing an in-person visit, it can be helpful to know if there are any special events going on or a special activity time. Would this be something you would also like to participate in? Alternatively, if you're planning a virtual visit, knowing this can also help you to plan to connect outside of the activity or event time. Some people like to connect with children or grandchildren just holding them, or if you're at a distance, watching them go about their daily routines or activities in their homes. Many have found that creating a sense of purpose for the activity they choose to do together can help give a reason or motivation for doing it. It may also give the person or you something to look forward to doing together. There are a number of props outside of loose photos that can help engage a person during a visit. As previously mentioned, it's always helpful to think about the specific person, the activities they used to enjoy or currently enjoy, and to tailor the activities to where they are at and to their needs at this time. Again, these suggestions can be useful for both in-person and virtual visits. While it may be unnerving for you to see your dad playing with a stuffed animal, this stuffy might serve as a substitute for a pet they used to have. Additionally, for many people living with dementia, tactile stimulation can become very important. And so while recognizing that this may be uncomfortable for you to see, understand that the prop may just meet the person where they are at and provide them with the stimulation and comfort they need at this time. Outside of stuffed toys, the care home may have robotic toys and dolls that you can borrow during a visit. These toys can be found in stores as well, but it's good to ask the care home if their recreation department might already have some of these props. And with the idea of tactile stimulation in mind, some people really enjoy tactile books or other items such as fidget blankets. They can serve as talking points or a way to keep busy with something. Theme boxes can be created with the person's interests in mind, or might even be developed for a seasonal event. These boxes have props in them that can serve as talking points or activities that can be done together. We've certainly talked about photos before. Putting them in an album with labels can serve as a point of reference for the person. Albums can be made up from the past or from a current event, which could serve as a talking point during a visit. Putting albums together may also be something of interest to a person. And a new gift can become an interesting point of focus, talking about what it is, who it came from, where it's from or where to put it, and what to do with it can all be part of the visit. Short stories, whether they be in a book or in a newspaper, can help a person be engaged and serve as a focus point for discussion afterwards. Again, and always, think about the person and what they might be interested in. During a visit, what are some ways that you establish a connection and engage the person in order to find activities that you like to do together? Many people would rather watch than do, and that is absolutely fine too. Do you need an activity? When the person was at home with you, were you doing things every minute of the day? Maybe just holding hands or sitting quietly beside the person living in care is what they would prefer. As time goes on and dementia progresses, people often change from human doings to human beings and just enjoy being with someone. Many have told us that one of the hardest parts of visiting is finishing the visit. Some are concerned about how the person living in long-term care is going to react when it's time to leave, or how they will be supported during this transition period. Finishing a visit can also be very difficult for the person visiting, as you may have many conflicted feelings around saying goodbye. Whether or not the visit was a good visit can also impact how you feel at the end of a visit. There are things that you can do to help ease this transition for both yourself and the person living in care. Also, many have told us that finishing a visit gets easier as time progresses and the person in care gets more adjusted to their new environment. Let's look at some ways to support this transition. We want to acknowledge again that goodbyes can be challenging. If you are concerned that the person you're visiting will be upset when you leave, talk to staff and see what they have to say or to suggest. Maybe the person adjusts quite well once you're gone. Staff may also have some strategies for ending a visit that they have seen work well. Here are a few that you can also consider. The person that you're visiting may pick up on your own emotions. So if you are feeling frustrated, upset, or angry, they may feel as if they have done something to cause this. Staying positive and providing reassurances that you will visit again can help ease any anxiety they may be feeling. You may want to consider a soft transition into ending the visit. If you're quite engaged in an activity or having a discussion, ending the visit quickly may be jarring. Try to find a natural time to end a visit. And also, leading up to leaving might sometimes be helpful. Reminding them that you need to leave in 15 minutes or at 2 p.m., for example, can help some people prepare for the transition. Scheduling visits can be helpful so that they're seen as part of the normal daily or weekly routine. Make the end of the visit transition into another activity so it doesn't feel so sudden and it flows nicely for their day. Validate what's being said and acknowledge their feelings. Being able to name how they're feeling may help them feel better or help them see that people can understand how they are feeling. Redirect their attention. Consider ending the visit when an event such as lunch or bingo might be starting, so the person has somewhere to go or something to do once you leave. Having the end of your visit coincide with going to a meal or an activity can make for a natural end to the visit and can be a good distraction for the person. You may want to ask staff to help with this transition. And your excuse may be legitimate or it may be created. You can say you have somewhere to go. You're going to an appointment or a meal, or you have to go home and make a meal for your family. You need to go shopping or pick something up from the store. It may also just provide you with a reason to leave the room. I need to go to the bathroom or to see the nurse. For many people, saying when you will be back can be upsetting, especially to a person who has lost the concept of time. Saying you'll be back tomorrow or 2 days from now or next Saturday can sound like a very long time to a person living with dementia. Try saying, I'll be back soon, or I'll be back before you know it, or I'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, or even, unless someone asks, try not saying when you'll be back. We talk even more about strategies and how to support someone who is telling you they want to go home. We talk more about that in adapting to the long-term care session. However, this definitely can come up during a visit or may become more prominent as you are ending the visit or even after the visit has ended. So we want to highlight here some things you may want to consider around wanting to go home. Remember the timeline that we addressed earlier? This can become particularly significant around wanting to go home because home may not be what you think it is. In fact, home could mean a different room in the care home that they're living in. Therefore, what becomes really helpful is to address the want in the statement. What is it they want? Is it safety? Is it feeling connected to others? Is it something familiar or just being with you? If you can understand their want, you may be able to help ease this transition by providing reassurances. I'll connect with you later tonight. And by validating their feelings. It's difficult to say goodbye. I think bingo is about to start and some of your friends will be going. Ask the care home if you're allowed to bring from home what you're allowed to bring from home to increase familiarity and comfort, or rearrange if possible. Can you put the lamp on the same side of the table as at home, for example? Ask staff about restrictions. You may not be able to bring a dresser from home, but likely you can bring a favorite blanket or pictures or curtains from home. You may just have to create a reason as to why they are where they are. Try to not be perceived as the enemy or having put them in a care home. This can be damaging for the relationship. Instead, validate their feelings and explain why they are there. This is called using therapeutic fibbing or emotional truth. Of course you want to go home. I would too. I would love it if you could come home with me. But the doctor said you need to stay here for a little bit longer until your knee gets better, or until you're stronger and can walk more steadily. Have a reason that is more tangible or medical, something that they can relate to or understand. A few more days becomes a phrase that you might be saying for years, but it can help to ease a transition. And like we just said, we don't want you putting yourself in a situation where you are perceived to be the enemy or having wanted the person to stay in this place. By saying, but Dad, you are home, or this is your home now. This may cause anger for the person living in long-term care. Again, going back to the idea of emotional truth, you may have to say, you're just here for a while, or I'll talk to the doctor for you about this. Once the caregiver stops being the enemy, wanting them to stay in this new place, relationships often improve and it can make for easier transitions. While we have talked about strategies to support the person living in long-term care with ending a visit, we also want to acknowledge that this can be a very difficult time for the visitor as well. Feelings such as frustration, anxiety, fear, sadness, grief, happiness, and guilt may be all mixed together, and it can be challenging to know how to deal with all of this. Recognizing and acknowledging the feelings you are experiencing can help you manage how you cope. If you're finding things to be a little overwhelming and challenging, we strongly suggest seeking support for yourself. Support can be in the form of family or friends. It can be through the Alzheimer's Society's caregiver support groups or by calling the First Link Dementia Helpline to talk to someone about how things are going. It could also be reaching out to a healthcare professional such as your doctor or a counselor. What we want to really emphasize here is to not forget about yourself and the importance of taking care of yourself during the dementia journey. If you're unsure, don't forget to ask questions. Ask lots of questions. Reach out to the care home and get clarification. Speak with your case manager. There will be things that you don't understand or don't know, and asking questions can help clarify things for you. Enough can't be said about the fact that you are on an unpredictable journey and that journey can be very difficult. You will likely encounter unexpected situations, and you likely will perceive at times that your reactions were not always the best. Recognize that you're human and know that you're doing your best. Ultimately, if you start to feel overwhelmed, seek help and support from others. To finish this session, spend a few minutes thinking about what a good visit looks like for you and about any tips or strategies you currently use or something you want to try that you've heard in this session. Think about whether there's a better time or day for a visit. Is there an activity you both like to do that you haven't tried? How do you end your visits? And what works well for you? And as always, if you want to talk over a particular question about visiting someone in long-term care or anything about dementia, please don't hesitate to call the First Link Dementia Helpline. The staff person who answers your call can be a wonderful resource to strategize with, get the answer to a question, or even an empathetic listening ear if you just need to talk to someone else who understands the dementia journey. This support is available in English and in Punjabi, Hindi, Urdu, Cantonese, and Mandarin, Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The English line is available Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m.